Grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on a 2,000-pound raw totaler at the 242 weight class. Bobby, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, my name is Bobby Hume, and I train out of Hellbent Barbell in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Awesome. So I guess to start off, maybe what kind of got you into powerlifting? I know on Open Powerlifting, I'm not sure if I read this right or if they just didn't have it updated, but looks like you didn't start competing until you were about 30. So I just wanted to hear more about your background.
So originally, a girl that I trained, well, we were both doing personal training, and it's a girl that we always bounced ideas off each other. She messaged me one day and she's like, "Hey, I'm doing a powerlifting meet. I know it's not your thing." I was always anti-powerlifting because from what I knew about powerlifting was just the big belly guys. I was always into being in shape and being athletic. So that's what I saw. So she messaged me and she's like, "Hey, I need a training partner. I'm 8 weeks out from my first meet. I'm just looking for someone to do it with, or at least train with." I said, "You know what? Just sign me up. Let's do it." I knew nothing about it. I didn't train any differently. I didn't train how you and I would train now. Anything, no conjugate, no, nothing. I guess 5-3-1 was the closest to what I was doing. So we trained for 8 weeks and we jumped in some random local meet. And we knew nothing about it. We had some fun. And then to me, that I thought that was it. I had some fun, but I still had no interest in it. And then fucking, Skiba harassed me for about 2 years on social media, kept saying, "Dude, you need to get into this. You don't understand." He saw potential there and he just kept harassing me. And one day I went down to Hellbent, its original location, met up with him. We were benching together. We both benched 315. Then we were about to go up. He throws on this shirt. Now I knew nothing about multiply. Now at this point, I'm probably 31 or something. And never seen multiply in my life. Dude throws on a shirt, benches 550, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? You know what I mean? And at the time, I'm just still trying to be Mr. Fitness. I cared more about abs than anything else. You know what I mean? And he throws that on, and then his boy comes in with a bag full of double cheeseburgers, and he's just handing them out to everyone. So I'm just at that time in my life, I was like, this is fucked up. This is not what I'm into. So I disappeared for a year or so, and then after harassing me forever, he was like, "Come down, do this push pull, and just see what's up." I went to a push pull that he ran that was an unsanctioned. It was more like a cookout thing, real cool thing. And I ended up doing well at the push pull. I met his father, and then this guy also, Jay Picarillo, who runs the CT Powerlifting Hall of Fame. And they were both there, and they were like, "Who the hell are you?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You don't power lift?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "You're starting Monday." It was a Saturday. And Mike's father, Skip, was like, "You're starting Monday. I don't care if I have to pay for it." And then that was just about 3 years ago. That was three summers ago. So August of 2020 it was. And that's when I started actually powerlifting.
Yeah. And so when you started I know you train clients as well. You have your own personal training business.
Yep.
Is that something that you were doing beforehand? Were you coaching any athletes for competing, or are you just doing Gen Pop relative fitness?
Not competing powerlifting wise. I had a lot of athletes as far as athletics go, sports go.
Yep.
I was the strength and conditioning coach at West Haven High School where I live. And I also had, some high school athletes, college athletes, stuff like that. And then your normal Gen Pop and weight loss clients, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And then, after maybe 2 years of being in the powerlifting scene on and off, and then getting familiar with Mike and learning from them, and then getting West Side certified and all that, then I started probably 2 years ago really taking on powerlifting clients.
Yeah. So I guess one of my big questions for you, I think I saw this on one of your story posts. It was kind of why do you hang around multiply guys but compete raw?
All right, so I never thought, and this has now changed, but I never thought I would go multiply. I do see it coming in the future.
It's inevitable.
Um, because I like the camaraderie of it. I like the team atmosphere. I was a baseball and basketball player growing up, all the way to college. I was supposed to be a baseball player in college, but I ended up dropping out. But I was always a team sport guy. I love the team atmosphere. I love energy. You've been to Hellbent, you've seen the energy there. It's like meet day every Sunday.
Yep.
So so you know, even though I train alone in a sense, being around those guys and seeing you guys come and 10 guys are in one monolith, like that shit is sick to me. You know what I mean? Everyone's spotting and loading and helping, you know what I mean? And you've seen it too, even though you're a raw guy, like it's inevitable at some point you want to join into that, even just to have some fun, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm looking forward to I start meet prep Monday, but I'm already looking forward to the end of it just so I can like jump in a random variation and just be with everybody. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I just like that team camaraderie. I've handled Mike and a bunch of other multiply guys at a lot of meets, and you see the same people. And everybody's pushing for everybody, even though it's a competition. It's like, oh, you need briefs here, you need wraps here, you need everyone's friends, everyone's cool. And in the raw world, it's kind of like, you know, knuckled up, dog eat dog, shady shit, and it's like a soap opera. And now it's become kind of like WWE. Like the online personas are kind of corny to me, and you know,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I'd compete raw, obviously, but I associate like most of my training partners and people that I train with are equipped people, and any of the people that I do train with that are raw that like talk shit on multiply. I'm like, you just aren't around it. You don't understand how more connected it is, how much more shit you have to go through to like be a part of it, and how much you have to
yeah.
rely on others.
That's what I mean. The people you just watch people pay their dues, and the pecking order it comes in. We get young guys in there, and Mike's like, "This is what you do. You're going to come in. You're going to spot. You're going to load. You're going to shut up. You're going to listen. You're going to learn, and everything flows." And from guys that have been in the game 30 years to guys that have just been in the game, everyone's on the same page. Everyone's helping everybody. It's just the atmosphere and the camaraderie in it is so much better. Raw people tend to, for the most part, stay to themselves. And
Yep.
I'd much rather lift with a group of guys and have fun with it, not just be in there, treating it like a job all the time.
Yeah. So where do you think that whole like separation comes from? Do you think it's the reliance on multiply guys to need each other, or just the kind of, I guess, increase in like social media of raw lifting and kind of just people doing that whole lone wolf bullshit?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this before. I think it's a little bit of both. You know, um, Multiply, you obviously need help. Um, so they're forced in a way to develop some sort of team. But at the same time, I don't think social media helps because, like you said, everyone's their version of motivational posts is I'm doing this shit by myself for myself, and I don't need nobody, and da 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 da. And it's really, I get what people are saying when they're in that mode. Like I understand the whole like you versus you and this and that. But I've always been the type, I think because I was an athlete, is if you want to get better, you gotta play better. You gotta play against better. You
Yeah.
you want to be the best, you gotta beat the best. I want the whole reason I got to where I am is even when I just started lifting, one of my friends was just like a local, like in my town, like legend as far as lifting goes. So I was like, I'm gonna lift with this dude and I'm gonna chase him every day. And I'd get buried by 200 fucking pounds every fucking day. You know what I mean? He'd beat me in every variation, no matter what. But eventually I just chipped away, chipped away, chipped away. I'm always looking for somebody better to lift with so I could learn from them and try to keep up. You know what I mean? My first day at Hellbent, I walk in, I'm nervous. Mike's like, "You're gonna squat with this dude over here." So I'm looking at like, "What's his name?" And he's like, "Oh, Chris Delafive." And I'm like, I don't know nothing about him. Come to find out, he's like the best multiply lifter in the fucking world.
Yeah.
So now I'm squatting with him against bands, and I end up with like 550 on the bar against bands, and then he puts 1,000 on the bar. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Super humbling. But then for the next 6 months, it was me, him, and Mike in the mono every Sunday. And my goal was just to get a little bit closer to them every fucking week, even if I was raw, you know what I mean? And not use that as an excuse and not be like, oh, it's because you have briefs. Oh, you could. It's just no, I just doing my best to keep up and learn. You know what I mean?
For
And
sure.
I think we can both learn from each other as far as multiply and raw go. There's things that we could pass to each other. And I've never taken anybody I've come across in powerlifting for granted, whether they've been in the game one day or 100 years. I feel like everybody can learn from everyone a little bit. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what's pushed me along because I know how to just kind of shut up and listen. I like to learn. I learn every fucking day. And
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of raw guys, for whatever reason, going back to what you said, for whatever reason, they already think they have it all figured out. So that's kind of the reason. I've sat with a lot of people and they ask for tips, and then when you give them to them, they don't want to. If it's against what they believe in, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned like you said, I've learned so much from Rupo and anyone in the multiply game that there's just so many small things, and especially with multiply when you have to be so like detail oriented and intricate, they pick up on
Mhm.
things that you might not ever notice raw because you're just lifting the weight.
For sure, for sure. I mean, in Raw, I talked about this the other day with someone. There's a time where you can muscle weights up. You know what I mean? And in multiply, you can't really do that. You have a much smaller margin for error. So what I was saying is like the intricacies inside multiply. Raw lifters don't understand the small margin for error that they have. You know what I mean? So I think there's plenty of raw guys I've talked to that think, oh, we'll just throw these things on and we'll add 300 pounds to each lift. And it's not like that, man. Because I've put on a bench shirt once, I've put on briefs once. I put on briefs and squatted the same thing I squat raw. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I wish it was as easy as people think it is, but it's very different, and it's a different sport. You know what I mean? But I think more people have to appreciate what it is. So that's why I tend to gravitate towards it. I'm intrigued by it now, and I love that whole team aspect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, I don't know if someone told me this or I came up with it on my own, but I say like raw versus multiply is like broad jump versus pole vaulting. Like it's still a jumping sport, but you're
Yep,
using a
yep.
tool for one. Obviously, you're not going to compare someone's broad jump to someone's pole vault because obviously the pole vault is going to be higher, but that's why you're not competing against that person.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I like that.
But more into you, I guess. You said you're starting prep soon. What do you got coming up?
So I'm gonna do the Ghost Clash Pro Day April 7th down in Miami. It's Ghost Clash 3, and that'll be my first meet since last year's Ghost Clash. So I think last year's was in February. This one's April. So it's been a good while. I was signed up for the American Pro this year, and I ended up backing out because I just didn't feel like I had the time to dedicate myself to a prep the way I'd like to. Because I coach high school baseball and stuff. So I was in high school baseball season, and I just knew I couldn't give it. Like I want to bring the best product I can to the platform. I don't want to go and say, yeah, I did it just to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I knew I didn't have it. Mike kind of, started talking to me about it, and it was like, look, this is your hardest time of the year to be in here. So why don't we call that and try to sign up for something different? And then like a month after I backed out of that, Ghost Clash came up. So here we are.
Yeah. So what are some of your biggest goals for this meet?
Just PR any way I can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I had a bad run. I hit 2K. I went to the first American Pro. I bombed out. I came back to Ghost. I hit 1943, I think it was, or 1941. I don't know the kilo conversion. So I just want to go out there, and if I hit 2001, I'll be fucking happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I'm on track for a big meet, but I'm at a point now where I realize I don't want to be so dead set on numbers. I just want to, go out there and do better than the last time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to be so stuck on one specific number that it fucked up a lot of meets. It also fucked up a lot of training. You know what I mean? I'd be so dead set on a number going in that instead of taking a 5 pound PR, I'd go till I missed. And then next thing you know, your CNS is fried for a week, and then it fucks up a week of training. And so I'm being a lot smarter this time around.
Yeah, that's actually something I've been kind of going through recently too. Is like I'm approaching the 405 bench and like a 700 squat. So every time I'm doing training or like with any sort of AR, I'm like, it's got to be over 400 on the bar. It's got to be
Mhm.
over 700 for squat, and it just like you said, it's making the jumps fucked up because I'm overshooting because I don't know, hit 375 to the three board. I'm like, all right, we're gonna go for 405 instead of taking 385 and then 395. So
Exactly, exactly. And a couple people have told me, kid Andrew out of Hellbent said to me, like, don't be scared of a 5 pound plate. You know what I mean? Not everything's quarters and plates, quarter plate, quarter. We want it to be every jump to be a quarter or a plate. But he's like, don't be scared of that. And then, I got with Mike and my coach. Like, I consider Mike a coach too. He is a coach, obviously, but I use Ben Pauly, but Mike's like my second coach and my handler, and he's like, look, let's just focus on like base hits, no more home runs. Like, let's try to go a prep without missing. Let's go back to your last prep or whatever time you hit that last variation, and let's just chip it or beat it by 5 pounds. If you beat it by 5 pounds and it's like an RP7, then we might take a second. But if I beat it by 5 and it's a little grindy, I'm taking that win and I'm getting the hell out of there. You know what I mean? And then hopefully next time around I could go back and chip it again.
yeah,
But I'm not getting too greedy. And also as we get older and it takes longer to recover, and I'm not very good at recovering to begin with because I'm a terrible sleeper. But we got to take what we can get and know how our body's going to react to it, especially like a deadlift, right? Like a
yeah,
deadlift takes me fucking forever to recover from.
same.
So I just take the small wins now and hope for the best.
For sure. And I think taking the small wins is something that a lot of people overlook because even if it's a 5 pound PR, you're still making progress. So you got to
That's
just
what I mean. Yeah,
take the wins as they come.
for sure.
And I guess one of my big questions for you as well is for a 242, it's kind of rare to see a 500 pound raw bench. If that's something that you've just always been particularly good at, or is there something that you've been kind of using throughout your training that's been like helping your bench out a lot?
So with that, I'd say a little bit of both. I was always naturally a good bencher for whatever reason. Like in high school, I was a tiny, tiny kid, and like my first day ever benching, I think I benched 185, and everyone was like, "What the?" Like I had big kids on my baseball team that were like, I've been trying to hit that for a year, and I didn't lift at all, and I just went in and like hit it." So like I've kind of been naturally a good bencher, but then it's something that I've been like very meticulous with. Um, you know, picking apart my form, trying to do every little thing, technically speaking, to get an extra five, an extra five. Because once you get to a certain point, you know how it is. It's easier to gain pounds from technique changes than it is strength once you get to a certain point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think it's a mixture of both. I'm naturally, for whatever reason, very explosive off my chest, and that helped. And then I had to pick apart all the lockout stuff. Every miss I had would be halfway up or more. So like I can probably get 600 off my chest. But then, it's about locking it out. So I had to drill triceps, I had to drill the high boards, I had to drill bands, to get through all those little plateaus that I kept hitting because all my misses tended to be lockout misses, you know what I mean? So yeah, a mixture of both, but something that, as it gets heavy, like, how much, like you said, how many 242 guys are hitting that? How much can that body take before you have to make all these little adjustments? Because you can't gain that much more strength on it specifically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without gaining size, and then that pushes me out of a weight class. You know what I mean? Like dudes are like, when are you going to hit 600? I don't see myself ever hitting a 600 bench at 242.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't. I think only one person's ever done it at that weight class. So I just don't. And especially my frame, I'm a leaner 242 compared to a lot of the guys that I see and compete against. A lot of them tend to be shorter and very stocky, short arms. You know what I mean? And they're more built for the bench. I'm not necessarily built like a lifter. I've just like chipped away.
Yeah, and for me, a lot of the things that have been working for my bench recently is the three boards and the two boards and a lot of bands and chains at the top, but a lot of the lockout work because, like you said, my chest is strong, like but right off the chest, like 6 inches off the chest is right where I stall out. And
Yeah, and I mean those little things are the things you can't take for granted, and sometimes you may not want to do it. Like every day, we want to look at our program and see straight bar, straight weight to the chest, but you may have to do waves of three board, two board, heavy band on the top. I've been doing pin presses, which I fucking despise, but they've worked. You know what I mean?
yep,
Pin press right at that. Like if that 6 inch point is your where you die out, pin press from there. You know what I mean? It's going to be fucking miserable for a while, but you will see a change. And that's what this shit is all about. I mean, people want that instant gratification, and they don't realize that the process is the part. You know, I get new clients that want to put 100 pounds on each lift every year, and maybe they can in their first year or their first 2 years, but then it's like I went 18 months without a squat PR.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And then just recently I hit a 30-pound squat PR, and it was like I thought a fucking miracle happened. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
people don't understand how hard it really is when you get to certain levels, whatever that level may be. I'm not saying my level. I'm just saying for each person they have a different. I don't want to say ceiling, but they're your plateau points. Let's call it.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, for
And
sure.
and then you got to figure out how the fuck you break through it, and you got to do whatever but it might take a year to break through especially a bench plateau. The bench moves the slowest, so
Yeah.
it may take forever to do that.
Like I don't know what happened, but my bench was at like a plateau for like basically 2 years, and I think most of it was from football. Like I probably hurt my shoulder at least twice a season, and was
Yeah.
gaining and losing 15, 20 pounds every season. So that I think actually too another thing is the body weight to like bench strength correlation is insane. Like you lose like
Oh yeah.
3 pounds overnight, and like I swear to God, your bench drops 10 pounds.
10 pounds. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
10 pounds right off your bench.
it,
Oh, I always know. I weigh in Fridays before I go to the gym, and Friday night I bench, and I could tell you when I step on the scale if it's going to be a good or bad night. You know what I mean?
yeah, and
If I step on and I'm 2 3 pounds under what I want to be, I'm like shit. It's going to be a grinder tonight.
for sure. So what do you usually sit at in the off season?
Right now I'm 250 on the dot. I've been trying to get up to 255. 250's where I've sat for my last few meets. That's pretty much the heaviest I've been. Um, once I like refeed after weigh-ins, I could get up to like 254, 255 for bed, but I float like a ton when I sleep. Like I'll go to bed 255 and wake up 248. You know what I mean? Like I lose a lot. I've always been uh what do they call it? Like a hard gainer, I guess.
Yeah,
So I want to put 5 6 more pounds back on because I know the 242s, especially the ones that go to Ghost, they walk around 270 sometimes. You know what I mean? Big boys. So I want to get another 5 6 pounds of like steady weight on me that stays and sticks. But it's fucking tough.
yeah,
It's tough, man. It's a full time job to eat the way I need to eat, and I'm not. I don't have a huge appetite. Like I'm struggling just to maintain the 250. If I have one bad day where I'm busy running around and I'm not like diligent with meals, I'll wake up tomorrow 246, and then I'm like, fuck, man, I gotta right back.
I'm the exact same way. Like this is probably the first um, off season that I'm actually like above 242. Like before, I was chilling anywhere from 240 to 245, and
Yeah,
now I'm at like constantly sitting at like 252. And I was
yeah.
like, just the strength gains alone, just for being that much heavier, have been phenomenal.
Just by like fucking 5 6 pounds, right?
Yeah,
I know, and that's what's crazy. I mean, before last Ghost Clash, or no, before the American Pro, I was like sitting at 240 all the time. And people were like, well, that's where the 220s sit at. So why don't you just cut down to 220? But I didn't want to, I've never made a cut bigger than like 8 9 pounds.
yeah,
And I never really wanted to because I know how strenuous it is on the body. And if you don't hit it just right and then recomp just right, you can be weak as hell that next day. But I'm at the point now and I have enough, um, good people with good education on this stuff on my side where I want to try to push it and to the 255 or high 250 range and see what I can do when I water cut and then refeed.
yeah. So with the upcoming meet, who are some of the competition that you'll be facing? Or some of the big names in the 242s?
Oh man, 242. They haven't released the official roster yet. Um, I'm not 100% sure as far as the 242s go. I know. Oh, what's that guy's name? He had a good year last year. He's a Canadian lifter. It'll come to me in a minute, but I know like Hussam is in retirement right now. He was a big 242 guy. Carlos Reyes is competing in February locally. So like I know a good group of 242s from last year. I don't know if they're going or not. I haven't talked to a lot of them yet. I tend to the guys I talk to more are out of my weight class for whatever reason. There's no reason behind it. It's just that's just what it is. But like I know Hack's obviously going to be there doing his thing. I think he's going to go 220, which would be interesting because he won't make the big cut anymore. Um, I think Chad Penson's doing it. And Penson mentioned 242s. I don't know if he's going to go there yet, but I know he's tired of cutting to 220. So he might be a 242 guy. And at that point, he'd be a top dog. I don't know if Derek Thistleweight, Death Grip Derek, he might be doing it. I got to see the roster before I could pick. I just 242 is so stacked. All those guys I named, they could all back out, and it's still a stacked class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think 220s and 242s raw is are the best classes in all of powerlifting.
I totally agree. I think just the sheer amount of strength that you can get at that size and still be like a lean bodied freak is like, because I was even down at Baines Barbell Club. They just opened last year in Utica, and there was some 242s there where I'm like, fuck, I have to compete against these guys. Like, I'm like,
Oh, that kid RJ Butcher.
yeah,
Yeah, insane.
RJ, and this other kid, his last name was Stewart, but totaling like 2100, 2000, over 2000 raw is just at that weight
Yeah.
class is just fucking insane.
And the kid RJ Butcher looks like he could step on stage, you know, with an 8-week cut, he could be a bodybuilder. And that's how a lot of these guys, Carlos Reyes looks like that. Chad Penson looks like that. Hack, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these guys are fucking yoked and shredded. And, Jason Legrand will be doing Ghost at 242. That's a good competition of mine. I'm trying to get my good friend Ronell Leftwich to do it, but I think he's doing something local in Georgia. But he won 242s at the first American Pro. He totaled like 2111 or something.
Yeah.
And he doesn't go spoken about enough in that class because he's not a big social media guy. He's kind of quiet. He's been branding his social media a little bit because now he's training people, but he's not like a big persona in the game. But he's quietly, squats over 8, pulls over 8, benches over 5.
Yeah.
You know, and just quietly fucking does it, and nobody talks about it. And I'm like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. So I guess that's a good little segue into becoming like a powerlifting coach. So obviously there's a lot of like, for me personally, like I do coach athletes, and I don't have like the greatest total, but I am surrounded with people and take a lot of knowledge from the people I learn. But I see some of these like kids that are my age coaching people, and I'm like, do I look like this to them? Because it's fucking horrible to watch. So I want to hear your opinion on that.
On what I think of you coaching, or just in general?
Just younger people coaching, and just people that aren't like up there.
So my take, I've been open about my take, but there's never enough time or space on like an Instagram story to say my whole piece. So this is good you brought this up, because I've made comments about like a big total should be part of coaching, and that's not necessarily all I mean, but I think a big total comes with unless you're completely gifted, like this kid Trey I train, who he's only competed twice, and he went 2000 and then 2100.
He's a fucking freak.
You know what I mean? And he doesn't know anything about powerlifting, and he'll be the first to tell you he doesn't know shit. You know what I mean? He loves bodybuilding. He wanted to be a bodybuilder, and I met him and I said, bro, you're a powerlifter. Just give me like 12 weeks to work with you. If you don't like it, go back to bodybuilding. And he's taken off since. But aside from those flash in the pan is a bad word, but aside from those freaks that just pick it up right away. I even came up fast, I guess. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But you these guys with the big totals for the most part comes with years and years of experience. You know what I mean? And I don't think there's anything better to look for in a coach in powerlifting than experience. And I say that because, you know, there's a million guys with a lot of book knowledge that are coming straight out of college, and then they want to tell you how 700 pounds should feel on your back, and they've never felt 400 pounds on their back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's or even if 400 is their full or complete max, let's say, or like how we said, their plateau point. They don't even know what it's like to just have like an eye busting grinder of a lift. You know what I mean? Like these guys are, it's more than just book smarts. You know what I mean? I've met some guys that never even finished high school that can break down lifting like you wouldn't believe. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Or didn't go to college for biomechanics or sports medicine or whatever it may be. And I think these are things that you pick up um, through just years and years of experience. One of the best guys at breaking down a lift I've ever seen is Chris Delafave. And then you look, and he's been competing since he was 17, and now he's 35. You know what I mean? That's just 18 years of hands-on real experience. And I don't think there's any amount of books that can teach you that.
Yeah.
It definitely helps as a guide and as an aid, but also in books you learn that everything's one way, right? You know what I mean? And the more you do this shit, and you'll learn it as you continue to coach, and I've learned it a million times, your opinions eventually change on things. And you learn that everybody's completely different and everyone's leverages are different. There's no one way to squat, one way to bench. And the book guys will tell you that. This is how you squat. And if you don't do it that way, it's wrong. You know what I mean? So I just think um, the experience in the sport, it does not necessarily with age. You can be 20 years old, but if you've been to handled and coached and competed in 20 meets total, that's good experience. If you've been around it and you learn and you soak it up. There's some people that just go to meets and just go to meets, but when I'm at a meet, I'm soaking in everything. I'm watching how people are wrapping knees. I'm wondering why they're doing that. I'm asking questions. You know, I've never worn gear besides like the couple times I tried it, but I've handled multiply guys because every Friday and every Sunday I'm next to Mike saying, "Well, why do you do it this way? Why do you do this? What are you doing here? Show me this, show me that." You know what I mean? And that's just because I'm so eager to learn as much as I can because it'll help me both as a lifter and a coach and just a training partner. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, you know, when you come down, we shoot the shit. You might teach me something, I might teach you something. And that's just all experience stuff that books I don't think could ever teach you. You know what I mean?
And I think the way Chris said it too is like nothing beats time under the bar. Like just
Exactly.
being like so over the course of this year now I've officially pretty much been a handler, been a spotter, a loader, a judge. So I've been around the sport a lot more, and something I've noticed like for the kids my age is especially in USAPL, but it's because collegiate in general that kind of is where collegiate athletes tend to go towards. But I've noticed that all the coaches around my age seem to just circle the same information that doesn't get them anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's what, a lot of them are what I call regurgitators.
yeah.
They hear something and then they spew it back and they spew it back. And it even goes with cues, right? And now cues, I laugh when I hear all these cues I hear at meets because cues aren't a one size fits all thing either. You know what I mean? You hear everyone yelling like, when someone picks up a deadlift, they're all yelling like glutes or whatever. But you don't know if that person's weakness is their glutes or
Yeah.
if they're mistiming their lockout because of their glutes. You're just screaming a random cue. And the hardest part I think about coaching and cueing people is to find a cue that's going to stick with them. I could tell you a cue five different ways. You're only going to get one, the best
Yep.
for you. I might tell the next person that same cue and they don't understand it. You know what I mean? Some people you got to, pinch your ass like you're trying not to shit yourself might be the best cue they ever heard. You know what I mean? Other people need it more technically sound. And it's just, it's figuring out what each lifter needs, how each lifter translates what you're saying, and puts things into action. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and kind of going with that too. I think I saw this on your story the other day too about like deloading, about how some of these deloads are way too fucking heavy, and you're like, why are they getting programmed such a heavy deload when they're either in prep and they're deloading through prep, or they're in the off season, they're not taking a proper rest to actually peak.
Well, that's what I'll never understand. Like, and I won't call anyone out by name because I don't want to, it's not a beef thing or anything. But like, I saw a lifter, and if he hears this, he might see know it's about him. But I saw a guy the other day take a deadlift, and it was very very grindy, and he wrote like deload deadlift on it, and it looked like a RPE 9, and I'm not kidding. And then I looked up his best deadlift, and then I did the math, and it was like 87%. In what world are we taking 87% as a deload? Some people I know open around 87,
Yeah,
88% as their opening lift.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Depending on what their philosophy is on second and third attempts, someone usually people open between like 87, 88, and 93%. And
yeah,
then they push from there. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, then I'm looking at my plan, and like my deload is like 200 hamstring curls against a band, 200 quad extensions with 25 pounds, 4 sets of 20 incline dumbbells with 50s. You know what I mean? Like just blood flow and active recovery work. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And you got these dudes doing SBD days with 75, 80% as their deload. And then they're wondering why they're not seeing the progress. And it's like, because you didn't really take a week off. That wasn't even recovery work.
Yeah.
Skiba posted the other day he wouldn't program anything over 65% for a deload. You know what I mean? I'd go even lower than that probably.
I would say, yeah, that's 65.
65 would be probably the absolute max. But I don't when I deload my clients, I don't give them any barbell work.
Yeah,
I don't want them touching a barbell that whole week. It's bands, it's dumbbells. You know, I if you're going to squat, it's going to be like a goblet squat. If you're going to bench, it's going to be like an incline dumbbell or, flat flies, something like that. You know what I mean? Pec deck. And then you don't pull at all. If you do anything in that motion, it's going to be like light RDLs or, you know, belt squat hinges, something like that. Like I'm not having anyone touch a barbell on their deload week.
yeah. I usually do the same thing, and I know some people, if they do, it's like 50%. Like you should not be, you should barely even be breaking a sweat. Like it should be like your third warm up set if you were going to max out that day. Like,
And not only that, these guys that are doing these heavy deloads are the same ones that are doing SBD days. So they should be less apt to touching a barbell.
yeah,
You've done all three lifts 3-4 times this week. And now next week for your deload, you're still doing the three movements. You're not really deloading. Even if he took 70 or 60%, that's still not really deloading because you should be getting away from the movement completely,
yeah.
like the meat and potatoes of the movement. You know what I mean?
hmm So I guess kind of more into not necessarily accessories, but different variations. What are some of your favorite like specialty bars, or like do you like bands or chains more, or what do you hate?
All right, let me think about this for a second. So we were laughing because I'm like, when it comes to powerlifting, I'm built like backwards. Like I'm what everybody doesn't like to do. I love squatting with the SSB.
Yeah, I nope.
Like if I could make a federation, I would compete SSB squat, buffalo bar bench, and a stiff bar deadlift. And everyone's like, "What the fuck is
Sicko.
wrong with you?" But like my buffalo bench is actually my max is higher with the buffalo bar than a straight bar. Something about that deep stretch, I get more like I don't know, more stretch and more pushback from it. But I like I like AR. I like chains. I like bands. I prefer chains with squats. I probably prefer bands with bench and deadlift. I've never really I've only probably deadlifted against chains like 3 or 4 times. I've used bands a lot though, but bands beat me the hell up with deadlifts, but they work. You know what I mean? I've again just like my bench, I'm very fast off the floor, and I miss that lockout. So that band work is a necessity for me. You know what I mean? That top end overload. What do I hate? I hate the camber bar. I
What?
hate benching with the multi grip bar, the football bar. I hate nothing. I like all the pole variations you do. Basically, I don't have any problem with any pole variations. I mean, I suck off of like blocks,
Yeah.
and I think for the most part, conventional people do. You know what I mean? Blocks is great for sumo pullers. They get to swing their dick a little bit, but conventional, I suck.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I hate benching with the football bar. I've grown to like benching with the axle bar a little bit more, but I still don't like it that much. But I hate camber bar squatting. That's about it. I hate front squats. I don't think there's carryover for power lifters.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, though. And I hate pause deadlifts, and I've posted about this many
I
times.
yeah.
I don't see a point. I see what they're trying to do, but as a lifter that wants to control speed and be fast and explosive, I don't want to be slowed down. Because then
So
it trains me, it gives me in a habit of getting in a bad position.
yeah. So my counterpoint to that would be in terms of what about using it as for a sumo lifter for the just breaking the floor and then going as like a wedge, as a way to practice their wedge.
Yeah, I guess that's more specific, and that's you know what, I never really thought about it, but I don't see as much of a problem with sumo pulling and pausing. It's more a conventional thing.
Yeah.
Because sumo you have to train patience to begin with.
Exactly.
And that's why I struggle so much when I was trying to train sumo. I was so used to being fast and explosive, and then you took that away from me, and I'm like, "Oh, no, I don't got it." And Mike's like, "It was leaving the floor. You just have to give it time." And I'm like, "No, no, I didn't have it." You know what I mean? Like, I want all my lifts to be a max of 1 second,
Yeah.
and if they're not, I'm out of there.
For sure.
And my coach was making fun of me for that because I had a lift Sunday. I squatted with reverse bands, and he told me to only work up to 725 and cut it. And then I went into a deload this week. Um, I hit it, and it looking back now, it was fine. The lift was completely fine, but it wasn't as fast as I thought it should be. And he's like, dude, like he made a post, and he's like, if Bobby doesn't, if Bobby's lifts don't move like a speed rep, he's suicidal the next day. You know what I mean? It's like I'm so used to just I need everything to be like so like if I have a grindy lift that's 3 seconds, let's say, to me it feels like 12 seconds.
Yeah.
I
I'm
watched the video back. You know what I mean? Like it just feels you know how time slows down when you're under the bar. You
especially
can have
yeah.
a whole conversation with yourself, you
Yeah.
know? So it feels like an eternity under the bar, and then I'm like, damn, I can't handle another jump.
Yeah, and I noticed that especially when you're doing movements with heavier AR, it's like it's so if you have like an RP, say your goal is RP 8 that day, you'll hit something, you'll be like, dude, that felt like a fucking 9, and then you'll watch it and it'll be like that could have been a 5.
Yep.
But it's the like the say you're using bands on a squat, like it feels fucking 10 times heavier at the top, so.
Oh
It's
yeah.
I'm like, this is why you need to record your shit, but not everyone needs
Mhm.
to just record to get an Instagram video. It's to
Well,
get better at
exactly.
the lift.
A lot of the recording should be done to analyze. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, but it's funny you said that because also what I noticed with AR is that window from like a 7 to a 10 comes a lot
yeah,
is a lot closer. Like you may hit a lift at like an RP 6 or 7, and you'll be like, all right, I'll jump up like 25 pounds. And then next thing you know, you're at a 10. It's like,
yeah,
holy shit. Like that AR gets heavy fast.
yeah.
You know what I
Especially
mean?
with bands, dude.
Yeah, it's like it almost like there's a certain weight threshold that all of a sudden it's like, all right, this AR is turning on now. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's not on until it hits a certain amount.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So you said you don't like the camera bar, but you like the SSB. That's like the complete opposite of me. I think the rackable camera bar. I think I like that bar better than a straight bar for squats. Like
Really?
I don't know, something about it just feels so natural. But the SSB can go fucking die in a hole.
I think I just like the SSB because I'm good at it. I mean, it's miserable, but like, I see guys lose, Mike said, I lose about 100 to 200 pounds when I use the SSB.
Yeah,
I took a wrapped SSB squat and hit like 735 when my straight bar squat was 755. You know what I mean? Which doesn't make sense, but I guess, just that leverage for me, maybe that upper back, you know, I tend to cave, and I think with the SSB, you can push against it with the back, and here with a straight bar, if you cave, you cave. You know what I mean? So like, I think it just works for the way I squat. It's just beneficial to me. And then I always see a huge carryover in my pull when I do a big SSB wave. So I think I like it more for the benefits for me personally than actually the motion of squatting with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So because I have Kirby Goodrich as my coach, and
Yeah.
there's just like a running joke that anytime he programs SSB, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna fucking kill
Yeah,
you.
I see the
Yeah.
memes you made about it.
I'm like, I'm so sick of this, but it's working, and like I've gotten much better at it because my weak point is my upper back, and like anytime I miss a squat or anything, it's because my back is. So I can see the
Yeah.
application for it, but I'm so fucking sick of that bar.
Yeah. You will see carryover. It's just going to be miserable a wave of drilling that bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm excited to get into prep. I'm competing in April, so I'm hoping to
Nice, nice.
try to aim towards 1700, trying to cross that mark. And I think depending if I cross 1700 or not, the meet later in the year that I'm gonna do is either gonna be single ply or sleeves. So
Yeah.
we'll see where it goes from there.
So you're going wraps in April.
Yeah,
Nice, nice. See, and 1700s still a big total. I think that's where people get messed up now because they see these 2,000 pound totals and stuff. But I made a post about it a week or two ago. You know, there's been a lot more than maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago when 2000 was like the holy grail or whatever. But there's still, I looked it up. There's like 400 and something thousand people on open powerlifting, and there's still under 1,000, 2,000 pound totals. You know what I mean? So 17 and 1800 still, I know a lot of good lifters that are in that range that I consider good lifters. So that's nothing to, sneeze at. I don't, there's been a lot of, again, due to the influx of social media and who's popular, there's been a lot of like, oh, that ain't shit, that ain't shit, that ain't shit. But realistically, how many people are, in the grand scheme of things, let's just say, like, for the average person that looks from the outside at powerlifting, that's a big fucking number. You know what I mean? So,
all right. Well, I think we can kind of wrap things up here. So I'll ask my question. If you could give a new powerlifter or someone going into their first meet a word of advice, what would that be?
going into their first meet,
Yeah.
um, I told someone this the other day. It's funny you asked that. So, the first meet I put, and we all probably did, put so much pressure on it. But the first meet is honestly probably the best meet of your career if you want to make a powerlifting career, let's say. Because that just lays the groundwork. You know what I mean? Everything's a PR. That's when you realize gym lifts no longer matter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if you squatted 500 and bench 300 and pulled 600 in the gym. Now you put it to the test. And if you only hit 85, 90% of that in the meet, that's what it is. But that's what you now have to shoot for. Those are your real numbers, and those are the real percentages you start building off of. You know what I mean? And that's how you pick your percentages and go from there. So I think people, should put less pressure on themselves for the first meet, have a little more fun. Remember that I hate saying it, but it's only lifting. Because to people like you and I have talked about it, the passion behind it. To me, it's not only lifting, but to the average person or most people, it is only lifting. It's a hobby sport or whatever. But a lot of people like myself, like yourself, need this shit. You know what I mean? But have more fun. Have fun with it, lay the groundwork, and then build from there. And I think not that you want to add pressure to yourself, but I think a little pressure is good, So start adding pressure each meet. You know what I mean? Then that's when you start saying, I got to beat this number, I got to beat that number. But this one, you have no numbers to beat. You just got to put the number, you just got to put it down. You got to get one squat, one bench, one deadlift. That's it. Obviously, you don't want to go 3 for 9, but if it happens, it fucking happens. But this is the one where you go out there, you learn, you have fun, you watch everybody, you just take it all in. You just enjoy being there, you enjoy the moment, you try to learn something, and you try to pass something on, and then you just keep, and that's the groundwork. And then from there, then you pressure yourself a little bit. But the first one, have some fucking fun, enjoy it.
Well, I want to thank you to take the time for coming on. It was a good talk, and
Of course.
I'm sure I'll see you around, and then maybe we can hop on yours on sometime.